I would like to talk about responsive navigation, and I will use the ocean resort marina scenario. However, as you can see, I have reduced the amount of content to simplify it. All right, one of the most easiest ways of creating responsive navigation is to just eliminate the floats in your list. So here we see our unordered list. Our LIs are floating, and as we decrease our page size at a certain point, and here again the point which should be where the navigation starts to look poorly, we just change our CSS properties in the media query and we have a nice navigation. Now this works very well. Here again, this is all HTML, CSS, and it is relatively easy to implement. So if I were to go into my code, and here again the HTML for all these examples is the same. We have a basic unordered list here with our navigation. And all I am doing in my media query, and here again I'm doing this at 600 because that is the point at which my layout starts to break. I'm merely setting my LIs to float none because they were floating, and I'm also adding a bottom border to make everything look a little nicer. Alright, so that's what we have here in our first example. And the code for all these examples are available to you. Alright, let's take a look at our second example. In our second example, at a certain point, our list is converted, our unordered list is converted to a drop-down list, which is a form element. There we go. A little bit more compact, especially on a phone. Alright, so let's take a look at how this is accomplished. And unfortunately, most of these solutions involve JavaScript. However, it is relatively easy to implement. Alright, so here we have our styles. And notice in our media query, alright, the only thing I have in my media query is I'm setting the navigation to 100%. Or that whole bar, the whole select bar. Alright, and JavaScript is doing the rest. Alright, when you incorporate JavaScript into your file, the CSS always goes first in your head section, and then the rest comes in. And in these instances, we are using the Jquery framework. So here we have a reference to the Jquery Library, and it is a two-sided script tag. It needs to be both pieces there. Alright, and inside the opening and closing script tag, here again, this is the next line, and it needs to go in this order. First the library, then the script. Alright, everything is going inside this ready statement. And what we're doing, we're actually using Jquery to create a select element, to append it to the nav, to create our individual options, and to add the values, the attributes, and to append that to the select in the nav. And what we're doing is we're essentially looping through our existing A's, pulling out the href and the text, and appending that to the individual elements. And now this last line of code on the change event, meaning when we click on the drop-down list, it's taking us to the selected value, and we would actually load to that page. And here again, that's all you have to do. And JavaScript is very smart. And JavaScript code is generally written in a plug-and-play fashion where you don't necessarily have to set a whole lot. Alright, everything that needs to be done with respect to pulling out the information and adding it is there. Alright, so what else do we need to do in our styles? Alright, where this happened at, this actually happened at the 768 pixels. So there is something else we have to do. What about our existing drop-down list, our UL? All right, well, we need to get rid of that. JavaScript is going to replace that with the select, with our form element. So, and this is the breakpoint where I'm doing this because, you know, these things look nicer in larger devices and tablets. Here's my UL, display none. And now I'm setting my select to block, and I'm doing some other styling. All right, so this styling is being done to my form element to make it look bigger and nicer. And now for a smaller size, I'm setting it all the way to 100%. So let's take a look. So here we're going to get down to approximately 768. There you go. And it looks fine right there. It doesn't have to be all the way across. However, for the phone, it probably would look nicer. There we go. It's all the way across. All right. So there is a little bit of CSS that you will need to do, but it's essentially the same type of CSS that we have been doing all along. All right. So at the point in which we want to change, we need to hide the UL. Okay, do some additional styling. If something else needs to be set for the next media query, we can do that also. All right, let's look at a third example. All right. Here again, this is using a JavaScript plugin. It's just a different plugin. Actually, the first one wasn't using a plugin. This was actually just using all the JavaScript code, but technically it was Jquery, so we needed the Jquery framework. All right, so this is using a plugin, which means we need to add an external JavaScript file. It's just easier. All right, so here we go. Almost identical at 768. Our menu converts to drop-down, and on the phone, there we go. All right, so let's take a look at the HTML. And here again, this one uses a plugin. All right, so here we are, our traditional styles. Nothing has changed. And by the way, at the top of each page, I have the URL where this code came from. Believe me, I did not write it. I wish I could. All right, now remember, after the styles is where all of the JavaScript goes. Okay, so here we're referencing the Jquery library. Again, Jquery is a very popular framework, and a lot of your web plugins are used with the Jquery language. All right, so now we're referencing the plugin. All right, we need another external script tag, and then here is the call, and look how nice. That's all you have to do. Just call it. That's the ID of our nav, pound menu. Let's take a look in our HTML, or maybe it's my UL. Where did I put that? No, it's the UL. All right. Okay, so you need to identify the name of the unordered list. And here again, all of these pages, these plugins, always come with documentation explaining how it works. All right. Now, do we need to do anything in our CSS? Okay, because it's going to kick in at 768. All right. Now, notice we did not even have to hide the UL because Jquery is going to do that for us. However, I am setting some properties, and in a smaller resolution, I am making my select 100%. All right. So if you look into our folder here, here is the mobile menu JavaScript file. All right, so you need to download this file. It is just pure JavaScript, it's text, and it needs to be referenced. Here again, if there was a path, you would need to put a path in your reference here. Now, one thing you do need to do, and I'm going to open it up. All right, and here again, it automatically does this, and it will work very nicely with nested lists. So this is a lot more involved. This is a whole lot more code than last time. The only thing that you would need to set up here in the settings, all right, this is the switch width. All right, this is the width at which you want to change. It's a change, and I have it set at 768. Now this is the text in the first option for the drop down, select a page, and here's our prepend to nav. All right, because my unordered list is inside the nav element, and prepend means to put it inside, essentially. All right, so these are the three settings that you would need to include, and here again in the demos, I've already done that. All right, so here again, it's a JavaScript file with a .js extension. It's not a whole lot to be afraid of. Just ignore what you don't understand, which is most of it. All right. Okay, so moving right along, we have one more example to show you. And this one's kind of more sophisticated. All right, this is using another plugin called SlickNav. And this is very popular on the internet, actually. All right, there you go. How common do we see these menus? A little bit nicer. And I just let it go all the way up. There we are. All right. Notice how it slides up and down rather than going on top. All right. All right, so let's take a look at the code for this. Same HTML. Now, one thing about some of your plugins, because if you take a look at this, we do have a little bit of style going on here, don't we? Somehow or another, we got to create this box. We have some coloration. We have these lines. These are actually coded in using some CSS tricks. Therefore, we're going to have a CSS file. All right, now remember, CSS always goes first. So here's the top of my document. There's my shim, although this is JavaScript. But my HTML5 shim is going on top because we need to know off the get-go whether it needs to translate those elements before it reads them. All right, here is my SlickNav style sheet. All right, so here again, many of these plugins come with a style sheet, and they might come with even more than one JavaScript file. However, they generally have directions and showing you how to implement it and your different abilities to customize. So here on the left-hand side, there's my style sheet. My SlickNav style sheet's over there. All right, now, and that goes first. My external style sheets always go on top of my inline style sheets, or excuse me, embedded style sheets. I scroll down. All right, now notice in the media queries, and it's kicking in at 768, I do have to tell my LIs not to float, or they will. All right, so that's one thing. All right, and I am setting... Oh, no, this is given to you. All right, this has to be set. It just tells you to do that. All right. So here again, some of this is in the directions. And here is our ID equals menu set to display none. And our class for the SlickNav menu. And here again, that class doesn't even exist in your HTML. Notice, it's not even there. JavaScript is working with that. It's adding it to it dynamically, but you need to have it in your CSS. Kind of like that modernizer thing. This kind of dynamically does that. Here again, this is all in the documentation. All right. Because we have it kicking in at 768. All right. Now, after the CSS, here we're referencing the Jquery Library again, and there's different what are called content delivery networks. And these are all on the web, similar to the Google-hosted fonts. It's a content delivery network that holds a lot of commonly used code, such as different versions of the Jquery framework. All right, so we referenced the library, and now here again we have the plugin, the SlickNav plugin, and that is over here on the left. And then all we have to do in our third and final script element is call this plugin, very similar to what we did with the last plugin, and away you go. All right, so here we have 4 different variations, although 2 are the same. 2 are drop downs. However, one is just written with basic JavaScript code, and one is implemented a little bit more sophisticated. And then finally, just converting our floats to none will allow us to put a nice menu on the page.